don't see the one for Mr. Tyler either in my email. Did you get a notification on that? You did?
No, sir.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Ms. Honor. The July Goochland Planning Commission meeting will now come to order. Mrs. Hunter, do we have a quorum?
Mr. Chair, all members are present. You do have a quorum.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation led by Mr. Pituck. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh God, we come to offer up a word of thanks for your goodness and your mercy. As we come together to promote the well-being of the people of Goochland, bless the process as well as the product. Give us a blessing so that our words and actions are one in unity and that we are able to listen to each other. In so doing, we shall with good heart walk hand in hand to face the future and continue to give us the wisdom and courage that we need. It is in your precious name we pray and give thanks. Amen.
Amen. We will now open the citizen comment period. And this is to discuss anything that you would like to discuss that is not on tonight's agenda. You'll come, raise your hand, come forward, give your name and address, and you have 2 minutes. Okay? Opening the citizen comment period. Seeing none, we'll close the citizen comment period. Ms. Hunter, any requests to defer
Yes,
or
Chair.
additions?
There is one request for deferral. It's your second public hearing tonight, RZ 2020-02. It's an application by Linda and David Merrick's requesting a rezoning of 13 acres from B1 to A1. Property is located at the southeast intersection of Broad Street Road and Shannon Hill. They are requesting a 2-month deferral, 60-day deferral. That would take it to our September Planning Commission meeting.
Okay,
Motion to defer, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
okay. The motion's been made and properly seconded that we vote to defer. Any questions? Any comments? Call for the question. All in favor of deferring?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay,
Okay, public hearing items.
Yep.
The first public hearing this evening is CU 2020-04. It's an application filed by Martin Marietta Materials requesting a conditional use permit on 83 acres at 1916 Ashland Road for uses accessory to the existing for use, which was permitted by CUP 1989-12 and amended as CU 1989-12A. Specifically, a processing plant, processing equipment, overburden storage, and office is proposed. Property is zoned A2, M2, and B1, and a conditional use permit is required by the zoning ordinance. The comprehensive plan designates this area as industrial, commercial, and flexible use.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. As Chair, members of the commission, Tom Coleman, Principal Planner. The stated application we have this evening is a conditional use permit. The subject property is located in the northeastern section of the county. Just provide this graphic, hope this provides some clarity. To my left, that's where the existing CUP was approved for in 1989 for the quarry operations. To the right, you'll see some additional properties that are added in the dotted lines. This is a use permit requesting accessory uses to support that quarry operation. The subject property, most of the subject property is owned industrially. There is some agricultural and commercially zoned property along Ashton Road. A lot of the adjacent properties, most of the adjacent properties are also zoned agriculturally. Again, there's some additional B zoning along Ashton Road, and it is a rural residential neighborhood to the north. The subject property, for the most part, is recommended for industrial use, which reflects industrial zoning of the property. A lot of the additional property with this application, the adjacent properties are for the flexible, recommended for the flexible land use, would allow a variety of office, commercial, industrial uses. There's, again, some recommendation for commercial along Ashton Road frontage, and there's some a recommendation for residential to the north of the site. To the west of Rockville Road, there is a rural enhancement area. Looking at their photo, the quarry operation sort of is highlighted on there. There's a lot of undeveloped land adjacent to the quarry, but there are some residential properties, particularly along Rockville Road, and there are a few just to the north of the site along Ashton Road. There was a virtual community meeting held in May. The staff and the applicant representatives, board supervisors, member Mr. Spoonhour, and approximately 12 residents were on the call. There were a couple of questions and concerns raised about a cemetery on the property, potential impacts to Rockville Road, and an existing old road that accesses the site from Rockville Road, and the view shed from Rockville Road. And a lot of those questions came from the residents that live in that area. And again, for the proposed new uses, they are requesting new parcels to add to the quarry operation. The new parcels would be to relocate the processing plant and equipment, and also the office, and to locate those uses closer to Ashton Road and further away from Rockville Road. They also want to create some overburden stockpiles. Those would be closer to Rockville Road, and they also want to create some vegetated berms and other buffers around the property. Again, the existing CUP for the quarry operations was approved in 1989. The applicant is not seeking any changes to that CUP, and that's not subject to the hearing this evening. Just a couple of sort of conceptual plans, sort of provide an indication of what's going on the site. On this one, I'll highlight the orange area, really represents primarily the overburden sites, either existing and future. The dark blue really represents where the quarry operations are taking place. The yellow represent both where existing processing equipment and plants are located, and as we move to the closer to Ashton Road, where the processing plants would be moved to. And I would also note that there is the green around the perimeter is a 100-foot buffer. There's an existing 100-foot buffer around the existing operation, and with the new parcels, that 100-foot buffer would tie into that existing buffer. And again, here, looking at the Sarah photo, the quarry operation is highlighted. This does help to, in the blue, especially along Rockville Road, show where the new overburden stockpiles would be located, and then closer to Ashton Road, where the processing equipment would be relocated to, and where there would be some berming around on Ashton Road. I hope this will help with the following graphic. It's just the applicant provided a graphic sort of showing the view shed from a couple of different angles. So the first one will be labeled A. That'll be someone really standing on Ashton Road and looking almost directly west. The next two are along Rockville Road. B would be the view shed really standing along Rockville Road and looking in a northerly direction. And then the last one would be standing along Rockville Road and looking in an easterly direction. So the top line is the is A, and that looking to my right would be standing along Ashland Road. This is a graphic they provided. I provided a couple of elements to it. The sort of the purple box shows where those buffers that were in green were located, and those will show up again in the conditions. But again, looking at Ashland Road, you'll see that that buffer includes a berm and the trees on top of that. And the process equipment is approximately 45 feet. That's labeled on there, and that's sort of hidden those dark areas of sort of the existing overburden site. Skipping to the middle one, this was standing along Rockville Road and looking north. Again, right along Rockville Road, there would be one of those 100-foot buffers, which would include vegetated trees. And then the overburden stockpiles do have buffers on both sides. So on the other side, on the Junie Buck Drive side of the overburden, there would be another 100-foot buffer. And then the bottom one, sort of again, standing along Rockville Road, and this is looking more in an easterly direction. Again, there would still be that tree buffer there, that 100-foot buffer, and then again, there's that 100-foot buffer on the other side, which is really more the Junie Buck side of the overburden stockpile. As we get into the conditions, along the Rockville Road, mentioned the overburden stockpiles that will be located there. For the conditions, we're going to note the larger one. The more northern one is stockpile A, and that'll have a certain buffer treatment to it. And the smaller one to the south will be labeled stockpile B, and that'll have a different buffering treatment. Now, as we move into the conditions, condition number 1, which would allow the accessory quarry operations, including the processing plant and processing equipment, the overburden storage, and offices would be allowed on the property. These uses are accessory to the quarry use. No quarry activity would be allowed on any of the property. In addition, none of the processing equipment would be allowed on the Rockville Road properties, or the properties abutting Rockville Road. They did submit a conceptual site plan with the application. They would be required to comply with all state and federal regulations. With number 4, they would need to submit those, the permits, state and federal permits they get to the zoning administrator. As we get into condition number 5, there's a series of conditions that sort of support state and federal regulations. A would prohibit the disposal of any off-site materials on the subject property. B would require them to mark any permit boundaries if there are any quarry activities within 100 feet of a property boundary. For the roads, this would require the access to the site to make sure that that has a VDOT approval. And this is, we'll note the one change that was in your packet. The access road that's serving the site would have to be at least 20 feet in width, and it would have to be paved. And they would have to ensure that the public roads adjacent to their site are kept clear of debris. D would prohibit them from impacting any of their drainage ways. Moving to E, screening. They're essentially required to maintain a 100-foot buffer along the perimeter of the site. The buffer can contain fences and undisturbed woods, landscaping, and raised earthen berms, and they could have roads that traverse it in a generally perpendicular manner. As we get into, there are some different treatments in the different buffers, and that's what I'll get into with little Roman number 1. As far as Ashland Road is concerned, the 100-foot buffer along Ashland Road would either contain a 15-foot berm with trees that are a minimum 6 foot in height, and those would be planted 10 foot on center and staggered roads to provide a continuous screen. So it would either contain a berm and plantings, or plantings only. It could be planted with the trees that are 6 feet in height, planted 10 foot on center to provide a continuous screen. So that's along Ashland Road. Along Ashland Road, they would be screening the office, and the processing equipment and the processing plant would be located in closer proximity to Ashland Road. For getting into Roman number 2, the overburden storage area, this is really addresses the Rockville Road side, and those are, again, those where the overburden stockpiles will be located. Again, it's a 100-foot buffer. What we're doing with that one, the larger one, the applicant has indicated that that would be the first overburden stockpile that they would operate in or start storing overburden in. So they would have to go ahead and plant that with the similar type treatment on Astor Road of trees planted 6 foot in height, 10 foot on center to provide a continuous screen. They have indicated that the smaller stockpile is more of a future use. So if further on in these conditions, they've committed to not, or the conditions would not allow them to utilize that for 5 years. So we are allowing them to plant smaller plantings in that buffer with the idea that over the coming years, when they do start utilizing that stockpile, approximately 5 years, those plantings would have an opportunity to grow and mature. They moved to F, topsoil storage and drainage control. That basically would require them to utilize their topsoil to manage their drainage on site and ultimately try to manage and direct as much of the stormwater as possible into the pit area. Number 6, upon abandonment of the quarry, the operator would close off the roads and openings and so forth into the site. Getting to number 6, this does limit the stockpile areas to 80 feet in height on the site. And also, this is a change you'll see underlined that as far as there'll be no overburden storage on overburden stockpile B, as shown in the conceptual plan, for at least 5 years after the approval of its use permit. Number 7 would require a lighting plan for any external lighting. It would also require them to adhere to that lighting plan. 8 would not allow them to have any signage that requires a permit to be visible from Rockville Road. Number 9 would prohibit any access except for emergency access from Rockville Road. Number 10 would require a security fence at least 8 feet in height around the perimeter of the site. Number 11 would prohibit any toxic chemicals or hazardous materials on the site. Number 12, regulate their hours of operation. They are limited to operating 7 to 6, Monday through Saturday, with no mining or the accessory operations on Sunday. And 13 is our standard condition regulating the transfer or lease of the property. And that concludes my presentation. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Would the applicant like to speak? Yes, you may. Just give your name and address.
Can I slide this off, or would you prefer that I keep
No,
this
no,
on?
no,
Thank
so
you
I
very
take
much.
it off.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Thank you, Ms. Hunter, very much. My name is John Owen. I'm a lawyer here in Richmond with a firm called Harmon Clater, Corrigan Wellman. I represent Martin Marietta in this matter. We have worked, as you heard, with Mr. Coleman and the staff over the course of the last several weeks in putting this together and addressing any questions or concerns that were had by the staff in making this presentation. As Mr. Coleman alluded to, we are in agreement with all the questions and inquiries that he has made and are a part of this presentation today. I thank you all very much for the time in looking at this and putting this together. I have representatives of Martin Marietta here with me also, a gentleman by the name of Mitch Scott, who is at the quarry on a daily basis, if there are any specific questions that you might have. But thank you very much, Mr. Myers and staff and team.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now open the public hearing. If you'd like to make any comments, please come forward and state your name and address. Well, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Gentlemen?
I have no questions. Seemed like a very well-done presentation.
Tom? Kirk?
I think it's pretty clear, and I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and properly seconded.
Gentlemen, before you vote, can we just clarify that's with the revised conditions that were handed out, including the revised conceptual plan with the updated date? So as amended from what's in the packet.
So what exactly has changed in this?
Yes.
Well, on the dais, you should have had a black-lined version, and Mr. Coleman went through them. There's
Yeah.
just a few of them in the presentation. We can go over them again, but.
Okay. I'm sorry, okay.
So number 2, the conceptual site plan, it's just, I believe it's dated January 30th, January 31st. It's been updated from November 4th, and that showed the different overburden stockpiles. Condition 5C, he mentioned the road would change from 15 to 20 feet.
Okay.
And then in the screening conditions, the 5-year limitation for that second overburden storage area B. That's the same with condition 6, and that's it, so.
Okay, thank you.
You make that motion. I
Okay.
guess.
So a motion to approve with amendments.
Okay.
Second.
And who's second?
I second.
Okay, motion's been made and properly second that we approve. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Ms. Arno?
All right, the next public hearing is in District 2, CU 2020-05. It's an application by Richard Dane requesting a conditional use permit for automobile sales on .75 acres located at 2799 Sandy Hook Road. Property is zoned A2 agricultural, and the comprehensive plan designates this area as rural enhancement area.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. Members of the commission, I'm Jamie Sherry, the Assistant Director of Community Development. Tonight's request is for a conditional use permit for auto sales. As you can see on the map, it is centrally located on Sandy Hook Road. The comprehensive plan identifies the subject property and most of the surrounding area for rural enhancement. As you can see, there is a public, semi-public, also on the map, which is a church. It's Raglan Memorial Baptist Church, and then you also have Sandy Hook Crossroads right up the street, about a half a mile up the street. The subject property is zoned A2, agricultural limited, as well as the adjacent properties. As you can see from the aerial, the building, the garage sits right up onto Sandy Hook Road with rural residential surrounding it. Just a little quick history of how we got to this request. Back in 1998, a conditional use permit was issued for the subject property to allow for automotive sales. The conditions at that time did not allow for it to be transferred. This permit was active until just recently when the business closed. And but the reason why we're here is that normally it would just get transferred, but since there was not a transfer clause, that's why we're before you this evening. The proposed use is for a used car business. It is less intensive use than I think that was active on the property before. The applicant has committed to no sale of commercial vehicles. He stated that the sales will mostly be advertised on the internet and shown by appointment. There will only be minor repairs allowed on the property, and the applicant has stated he will limit the cars to 20 on the lot, with a few also being allowed to be stored on the inside. This is the conceptual plan that was submitted with this application. As you can see, this lot right here will be used for display of 15 cars. The upper area right here will be for additional 5 cars. When, as I mentioned, he will be able to store some inside. A virtual community meeting was held on May 28th. Board member Mr. Spoonhour, commission member Mr. Myers, and at least 2 citizens were in attendance. There were questions regarding the limit of the display area and any service activities that would be taking place. 2 citizens spoke in support of the proposal at the meeting. In front of you, you have a black-lined version of revised conditions. that are different than that was put into the staff report. After we had a chance to actually relook at them, we had some discussion, and there was a need to clarify what actually constitutes repairs for an auto sales versus your typical car repair shop, which is a different use in the zoning ordinance. As you see, as I go through the conditions, minor repairs is actually defined as, that there's a specific definition, but it also means that Mr. Dane and any future property, business owners can only do minor repairs on cars they intend to sell. Nobody's going to bring their cars there and have them repaired like a traditional car repair shop. This is consistent with Mr. Dane had applied for, and he has seen the revised conditions. So going through them, use number 1, vehicle sales are permitted on the property subject to the following conditions. Vehicle refers to typical passenger vehicles and does not include large commercial vehicles, trucks, or other types of equipment, including trailers. Vehicle repairs, this is the one that we did the most tweaking to. Minor repairs may occur on vehicles in preparation for sale on the property. Minor repairs include replacement or repair of any automobile part that does not require removal of the engine head or pan, engine transmission, or differential, but may include incidental body and fender work, minor painting, and upholstery services. All vehicle maintenance and minor repair work shall be conducted within the building, so there should be no need for any outdoor repairs. Plan of development, this was just a tweaking of language. Any expansion of the use may require a plan of development. That wasn't really a substantial change. I showed you a picture of the concept plan in the presentation. That is also how the business shall conform as related to the display. Vehicle display, no more than 20 vehicles shall be displayed for sale outside of the building. Vehicles can only be displayed in the areas shown on the conceptual plan. Legal compliance, all county, state, and federal regulations and ordinances related to vehicle repair shall be observed, including but not limited to proper disposal of gasoline, batteries, antifreeze, brake fluid, and similar substances. Number 7, outdoor storage. No outdoor storage is permitted of vehicle parts, petroleum products, equipment, other supplies, or tools for vehicle repair. Number 8 was removed from the conditions because it actually refers to repairs outside, and since they're not going to be doing intensive repairs and they're only going to be inside, we went ahead and removed that condition. Number 8, lighting. A lighting plan covering both temporary and permanent exterior lighting must be submitted and approved prior to any lighting being installed on the property. Once approved, all external lighting shall comply with the approved plan. Signage. Signs are allowed as permitted by the zoning ordinance, except that no attention-getting devices are permitted, including but not limited to devices designed or intended to attract attention through noise or sudden, intermittent, or rhythmic motion, movement, or physical or lighting changes. Banners, flags, streamers, balloons, propellers, whirly gigs, searchlights. I think we covered all the big ones. Flashlights are specifically prohibited. The hours of operation for this business will be 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. There will be no vehicle sales or repair activities on Sunday. And of course, that's the minor repairs that are referenced above. This is a 5-year conditional use. The expiration will be August 31st, 2025. And then lastly, we have the traditional transfer release that was missing from the prior CUP. So that is the conditions that are associated with this recommended. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
This is the site that was operated as Woodson Auto Sales previously, correct?
Yeah, Tommy Woodson.
Thank you.
These conditions are similar to the ones that we approved for the auto sales place up in Crozier.
Yeah, so yes, they're very similar. We did tweak them because this case was a little bit unique in that the whole site was basically approved back in the late 80s, so we sort of kind of made it more specific for this. But yeah, you're correct. The applicant is here, Mr. Daniels here, if you wanted to speak with him.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, it's my pleasure to address the Planning Commission on behalf of my company, Dane Motor Company. On May 28th, I'm sorry, 1292 Miller's Lane, Mannequin Savage. I am a Goochland resident, as my family is. We love it here. But I was pleased to be here tonight. Many of you folks were in attendance on the May 28th meeting. Mr. Spoonhauer actually stopped by about a week ago when I was cleaning and sweeping and painting, so I'm glad that he had a chance to see what my proposal was. As was mentioned, two of the citizens that did call in and show their support were actually Jennifer and Haney Height, who live directly across the street. They have to drive down their driveway to get out of their property and would run right into my building, and I was very, very honored that they chose to call in individually and present their support. As was mentioned, the building has been a car business since 1938. I will be the third operator in that length of time. I plan to change nothing on the exterior. The reason that we chose that building when Mr. Woodson retired was because of its architectural beauty. The only things that I have done to the exterior are cosmetic and reestablishing its history with the trim. I've been to the Historical Society and seen some photographs of when the Parrish family had it many, many years ago. And that's how we're going to keep it. As Ms. Sherry said, I'll be doing very, very little, if any, drive-by. That's not the type of business that I'm looking for. We won't be selling the same type of vehicles that Mr. Woodson sold. His were mostly late model SUVs, expensive automobiles. We'll be featuring older classics, mid-classics, convertibles, more specialty items that people will identify on the internet and then make an appointment to come out. Tommy called me when he chose to retire. I believe he's working for the county now. And it was a no decision for me to come out there and hopefully open that up as Dane Motor Company. I've been in the car business before. I recently retired this January from Hyatt Hotels. I'd been a hotel operator for many, many years, but I also owned Dane Motor Company, Virginia Beach, about 18 years ago. It was a successful automobile dealership, but it was much larger. It encompassed more features of the car business, whereas this is going to be a family business, my sons and myself and my wife, and it'll be a smaller business. We want to be good neighbors in Goochland. We want to continue to preserve that property. I think it's a beautiful property, and we just hope that we can get it open and be a part of this part of Goochland. We live in Mannequin Savage, so this is a little more west than where we live. I think that's about it. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Once we do, if we're honored enough to get our zoning permit, once we get that, we do have to present that to the Motor Vehicle Dealer Board. I have the package all ready for that prior to opening up. Today, as a matter of fact, I passed my dealer operator test questions with the DMV, and I took the certification last month. So what we're waiting on now is the zoning and then the approval from the Division of Motor Vehicles. So hopefully by the end of August, early September. May I answer any questions?
Yeah, I make it a point to drop by all the applicants' locations. To take
Yes, sir,
a
Mr.
look. And I've dropped by yours several times, but I never could find you open.
Well, I'm not open. And
I mean, or not open, but present.
I'm there most every day
Yeah, but present.
to paint or decorate. And
Yeah. Yeah, but I just stopped and took a look around,
Yes, sir.
around from the outside, so everything seemed to be in order.
I'm out there cutting the grass every week with my tractor, and I've been so bored, I've been doing a little bit too much decorations. My wife says I need to slow down a little bit.
I'm the guy who asked you about your
I
DMC
remember,
sign.
yes, sir, yes, sir. And if you notice up on the wall now, that's a DeLorean Motor Company
Yep.
sign up there now. It's,
Okay.
but it's a little different than ours, slightly different.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now open the public hearing. We'll now close the public hearing. There's not any old business. Oh, yeah, we got to vote
For a
on it.
motion first. I'll make a motion to recommend approval unless there's a,
I'll second
Kurt?
it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, any old business, Ms. Hunter?
Mr. Chair, there's no old business.
Any other business?
There is also no other business.
Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So move.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.